Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we've got another Bears blunder in Detroit. We have got Niko for MVP, some hot stove action, and Alex and I have our top 10 Chicago sports lists for 2017. All this and more on this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You can see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. They are not back playing in Rockford until January 7th. So it's plenty of time for you to put some season tickets or some single game tickets in somebody's Christmas stocking, as well as put some hats, shirts, jerseys, and more under the Christmas tree. So head on over to icehogs.com. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. All right, Alex. We got the Hawks up 1-0 right now against the Minnesota Wild, which is a good thing. We had a Bears blowout in Detroit. We got Blackhawks. We got a little baseball action. What would you like to start with?
Want to just rip the Band-Aid off and get the Bears out of the way?
Yeah, let's do that. I know a lot of people have been tuning in just to hear us complain, and that's a good thing. The Bears lost 20-10 to Detroit yesterday, and although the score was 20-10, that wasn't a complete blowout. Watching the game, it was apparent that this team was just outmanned and outclassed. And it was really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of putting it. And I think one of the keys in this game is talking about Mitch Trubisky, because he threw several interceptions yesterday. And a lot of people are talking about that primarily. But it's also interesting to note that he had over 300 yards of offense, 31 for 46. So, he did throw some picks, but he did rack up a lot of yards, and he did have some very nice throws. But, I mean, when you throw 46 attempts, that's a lot of throwing. And what I've said for the past few weeks is let Trubisky throw a lot, and he is going to get picked off, especially if you're a rookie. So, I think it is important to see Trubisky throwing a lot like he did yesterday, because that's really how you get going. And obviously there are other things I want to talk about, but I think that's one of the main things I wanted to bring up about yesterday.
Yeah, a lot of people will say, well, Trubisky threw 3 interceptions, and that was the difference. No, the difference was that we had, until he got injured, we had Chris Brzezinski in at safety. We couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback for the most part. The pass rush was very minimal, and we had to send a lot more blitzes than I've seen the Bears do all season in this game. And Matt Stafford it made him very comfortable in that pocket. Even when he had to roll out, it wasn't running for his life rolling out. It was, the pocket's collapsing, let me just roll out and then make this nice throw. That was a huge difference. On offense is the offensive line. It was penalties, and you only ran Jordan Howard 10 times.
Yeah, and that was a little surprising. We've seen the John Fox ground and pound throughout this whole regime, pounding the running backs and big running game, and that wasn't the case yesterday. It was surprising to say the least.
I mean, I get it. You're playing from behind, but you're only 10 points. You're 2 scores behind, and you had a long time to be able to try to come back from this. And it wasn't like, oh, it was quick strikes at the end, and you were trying to catch up in the last 2 minutes. You had time. They were just pinning their ears back and going after Trubisky because the run game, the attempts weren't there. You weren't keeping that defense honest. And even when your blocking was ineffective.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's almost kind of amazing that he got the yardage that he did. It was like, what? How many yards did he get totally?
Like 39?
Yeah, or 37 here it says, but 37, 39, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I knew it was something
It's honestly amazing he got that many yards considering just how bad the blocking was.
Yeah, it was just so frustrating. I know there was there's definitely some blame you can put on Trubisky, but again, we're supposed to be developing him for the future, and this regime just isn't doing it. It's either pulling the reins so hard that he's not doing anything, or you're just letting him go out there, like a cowboy and just throwing it all over the place with willy-nilly. But there's a lot of good things with Trubisky. Is you're watching his read progressions. You can watch his eyes scan the entire field before he makes his throws. The big thing for me is it's clear that he doesn't have timing down with all of his receivers. And there's a reason why he's going to Kendall Wright so much, because he's got timing down with him. But Marcus Wheaton, it looks like Wheaton and Trubisky are playing 2 different games on 2 different planets, and they're not quite in sync with Dontrell Inman. You're also getting a lot of how many drops were there in that game from the wide receivers?
I can't even count.
So it's frustrating, but you're seeing progression from Trubisky.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people need to understand that interceptions are not the be-all, end-all measure of what a quarterback does. You can't just look at the interceptions. I mean, we know that interceptions aren't good, but consider the fact that Trubisky is a rookie, and consider the fact that he still did get over 300 yards. So you got to look at everything as a whole, because the offensive unit has major holes in it, and that causes problems. And you got to look at the coaching that's above it too. With Dowell Loggins and the way he's called the games all season, the fact that the line is super banged up, and the fact that your wide receiver core really isn't good at all. You got to take what you get from Trubisky and look at what is good and what needs improvement. You can't just look at one or the other. And, I'm praying that whoever comes in next year will do what's in best interest of Trubisky, because again, current coaching status quo is not good. So take Trubisky's performance yesterday as I don't want to say a great learning experience, but at least a positive, because you could take some good things away from it despite some of the mistakes. I mean, it'd be one thing if he attempted 46 throws and he had less than 100 yards and 3+ picks. I mean, that's one thing, but look at the good things he did do, and you let him make mistakes. That's the whole thing. You can't learn from mistakes unless you make them, and you got to make your players make mistakes. And the fact that Trubisky's been handcuffed all year, how can you learn from not having a chance to make mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, good is, despite how many drop passes there were, he completed 67% of his passes.
Yeah.
And threw for over 300 yards.
Against a Detroit team that's solid. I mean, they're not spectacular, but they're in a playoff hunt right now and they're solid.
Yeah. But based on what you said, I have sort of two tangents that we can loop back around and pick a number, 1 or 2.
2.
All right. 2 is, I don't know if you saw the end of the Patriots Steelers game.
Oh, yes, I did.
So, speaking of interception, is the NFL, if it wants to talk, about this, that, and the other is causing ratings dip, is maybe they should figure out what a catch is. And I don't know how that wasn't a catch for a touchdown at the end of the game. And that call cost the Steelers the game. Absolutely, the officials changed the outcome.
This was a big game too. I mean, both teams are making the playoffs, but I mean, they're battling for seeds here in the AFC playoffs. I mean, it was an important game and it was a really big moment. And this is a game that was on prime time that pretty much the whole football world was watching. I mean, this wasn't some, Browns versus 49ers game. I mean, this was arguably the top 2 teams in football. And I'm not a Steelers fan, but I'm dumbfounded by that call.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of either team, and I have no horse in this race, but I saw what I saw. And I only watched some of this game, but the touchdown that the Steelers scored at the end of the first half, the cornerback, I think it was Stephon Gilmore, had Martavis Bryant, was holding his left arm. Martavis Bryant reached up with his right arm and caught the pass one-handed for a touchdown. I didn't see a single flag on there. And I'm like, all right, they're letting them play because this is an important game and they don't want to be the interference between what could be the difference between home field advantage throughout and not. I'm like, okay, I get it. But then they come around at the end of the game and they make that call. That they could have let that stand because he caught that ball, went across his knee was down, went across the end line, and they called it an incomplete pass. And they overturned the rule on the field for that. If they don't want to be an official that's interfering with what happens in the game and affecting the outcome, they could have just let the call on the field stand, whether it was a catch or not. Whatever was on the field, they could have just been like, "No, sorry," but they chose to make it, themselves have an impact on this game, and it did.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a direct impact because that was the winning touchdown. And look, you can talk all day about the dropped interception. I know, but in that moment, in the very last moment, I mean, the Steelers had the game won. And I could not imagine how furious Steelers and the fans feel because of that. Like, I couldn't imagine if the Bears were robbed of a game like that against Green Bay. I mean, I would have steam coming out of my ears.
Yeah. I just I would have absolutely lost my mind. I'm almost lost my mind, and I don't even like the Steelers. So it just, seeing that made me furious because the league's going to do what it's going to do, regardless of the impact.
And I was talking about this with my friend earlier. There's no accountability for any of it.
No, that's the thing. Is at best, the Steelers will appeal it, and the NFL will either submit a letter saying, "Nope, we made the right call," or they'll send a letter saying, "No, we botched it." But there's no accountability. They don't go back and say, "You know what? That was a touchdown. You win the game." They don't fine the referee. They don't suspend the referee. That referee just still going to work. No changes.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think this is a big problem among all sports. It's football especially, but you don't see any accountability for blatantly wrong calls from officials. Basically, it'll be some BS defense of the call, aka the NFL, or kind of like a baseball. Yeah, we got it wrong, sorry, and then nothing really ever comes of that. I mean, we were talking about, my friend and I, we were talking about the Zach Miller, and I was livid after that. I was so mad when that was overturned. There was not a single football fan that thought that should not have been a touchdown. And we talked about how the response was trying to defend themselves for the call and saying why it was the right call when it clearly wasn't. I think people are a bit more understanding when you admit you're wrong, but saying you were right when everyone knows you're wrong just makes you look 10 billion times worse.
Yeah, absolutely. The NFL was dead wrong in the Zach Miller case, and they, instead of just taking their lumps and facing it up like, adults, they doubled down with their wrongness.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
And this is another case. It was just really frustrating. Is if the NFL wants to blame players, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to throw the onus on the players for, kneeling during the anthem as why the ratings have taken a little bit of a dip, and it's not even that much of a dip. But they want to blame it on the players. They don't want to blame it on oversaturation with Thursday games, which everybody hates. Everybody hates Thursday games.
Players don't like it. Fans don't like it. The matchups are never good.
Nope. And it causes problems in the season because in those games they're terrible, and teams that are playing on short weeks, it's bad on them. It affects when they're the next game when they've got a long break. It affects the other team they're playing. It's just terrible. Saturday football, just stop. Play your Monday nights and your Sundays.
Yeah, exactly.
People are happy with that. You're making a ton of money. Leave it at that. If you start playing every day, people get bored. Baseball's played every day. And you know what people do? They don't go, oh man, I got to sit down for the Cubs game. They go, you know what? I'm busy tonight. They're playing tomorrow night. I'll watch tomorrow. I'll just catch the highlights tonight. But with football, you're like, if they play at noon on Sunday. So you make your plans, be like, you know what? I've got a bunch of stuff I got to do. I'll do it at 9 a.m. or 3 p.m. Just to block it out. But when you've got football all week long, people just start dealing with their life rather than being like, oh, it's an event watching football.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and who wants to watch like these Sunday night matchups? Who wants to watch like, oh God, it would always used to be when the Jaguars are bad, it would always be like something crappy, like the Jaguars versus the Raiders or, something silly like that. These days it'd be like, oh, look at Cincinnati versus the Giants. No one wants to watch those bad matchups. And, a lot of the matchups on Thursday nights aren't even made for like people don't say, oh, this matchup's going to be good, and it only ends up being bad because the teams are unexpectedly bad. They're usually just bad matchups, period, even at the beginning of the season. So, people aren't interested. And, it seems like so many of those Thursday night games are just always so boring. There's no reason to be interested unless, it's like it's a playoffs are on the line type scenario.
Yeah, I have not watched a single Thursday night game. Wait, did the Bears play Thursday night this season?
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay, then I haven't watched a single Thursday night game this season.
Wow, I really don't think they have. That's unusual.
Yeah, because I didn't watch any other Thursday night game. I turned on for about 5 minutes. Was it the Bengals Steelers?
I did watch that one.
Night? Was that a Monday night or Thursday night?
Oh, that might have been. That was a Monday. That was Monday.
Okay,
then the Bears that Sunday.
Okay, yeah. Then I didn't watch any Thursday night football, and I didn't miss anything.
No, you didn't. I mean, the best games are the primetime Sunday games or the Monday night games, and not the Thursday night games.
Yeah.
Except Thanksgiving. That's the one exception.
Yeah, well, that doesn't count. I watch Thursday football on Thanksgiving. That's the only Thursday they should have it.
Yeah,
I'm even fine with that opening game of the season, where the Hall of Fame game. I'm fine with that being like a Thursday, but it should be a special event.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's Thursday football. Ooh. Like when there's that opening weekend when there's 2 Monday night games. Like that's an event. I'm like, oh man, I come home from work, I leave a little early, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit down and watch a game as soon as I get home. I'm gonna watch another one at night. I'm like, football is finally back. They should be events, and then it should just be like devoted to your Sunday. Sundays and special events.
Yeah, like that, okay, Thursday games, there's going to be the Thanksgiving, and then there's going to be like the opening, like you suggested, and that's it.
But you know what? NFL going to do what NFL going to do.
For sure.
But looping back to the Bears, Rick Morrissey wrote a column for the Sun-Times, basically saying that if Mitch Trubisky doesn't succeed, that the Bears have a very real chance of becoming the Browns.
Ooh, ouch.
I mean, I read the article, and I agree that if Trubisky fails, the Bears are going to be set back several more years, and their futility. I don't know if it's going to be Browns futility, but it might be, Lions from several years ago futility, but which is half a step up, but still it's not going to be good. But that's all based on a premise that Trubisky's not going to be good. And we're seeing signs that he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for me to talk future regarding the Bears right now, specifically on Trubisky, because I think there's a lot of promise in him, but there's going to be a lot of factors that are going to change. Coaching, the team that's going to continue to be built around him. We'll see how long Ryan Pace is here and if he can truly bring us to the promised land. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to go down that road just yet. I don't think it's right to go down that road, but I can see why Bears fans are kind of scared about that because, I mean, yeah, no one wants to be the Browns. And right now we're not seeing success. We haven't seen success in 4 or 5 years. So I get the fear is there. I truly get that. But I think the thing I'd take away from that kind of article is let's just not go there yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really premature. Is we've got a kid at quarterback that looks much better than any quarterback we've had in a while. And let's put some weapons around him and a real coaching staff, and then see what happens. I'm more concerned that Ryan Pace is going to pick the wrong head coach than I am that Trubisky is going to be a failure. Not to say that there's not risk in either one, but I think there's much more risk of the wrong coach. And the thing is, look at the Rams firing Jeff Fisher. Look at how quick that turnaround came.
Unbelievable. I mean, you saw what they did to the Seahawks, right?
And Jeff Fisher, he made Todd Gurley look like a guy that people started saying, man, maybe that guy's washed up already. That's how bad he was at coaching. And you bring in, and people were like, Jared Goff is already a draft bust. And Greg Gabriel, who's the former head of scouting for the Bears, tweeted out many times that Goff can't play in the NFL and he's a bust. He made a public apology today. And
I saw.
So under Jeff Fisher, people thought Jared Goff was a failure. The Rams were just an abomination of a team. Todd Gurley couldn't run anymore. You bring in a new coaching staff, and suddenly they're the favorite to go to the NFL from the NFC.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and like you said, it was 1 year turnaround. It was incredible. Going into the season, I looked at the Rams and I thought, okay, I think they'll be a decent team. I think they can maybe make a playoff push, a fight for it. But boy, I mean, look at them now. It's like I say, coaching in sports is more important than some people may see, especially in football. And this is one thing that I keep telling myself and keep telling other people regarding the Bears is, I mean, coaching is really holding this team back right now. And I think you could argue that it's more frustrating seeing a team with some promise being held back because of poor coaching than just being poor. I mean, a few years ago under the Trestman era, it was bad players, bad coaching, bad everything. Right now, are the Bears a really good team? No, but they have, talented pieces on it, yet they're still being held back. And you see what a difference a few things could make in each game. You say, well, if we would have gone for it here or done this there, we would have won. Saying that over and over, that just tells yourself that the coaching is costing wins. And that's really, really frustrating.
Yeah, it's absolutely frustrating. This team, and the sad part is we kept John Fox on this year for God knows why, and we lost out on the opportunity to bring in some really good head coaches, because there was some real good ones that were brought in last year, and this year the pickings are a little more slim, and most of the guys that are the most promising people are defensive minded coaches, which is not what we're trying to bring in. So I have no idea what Ryan Pace is going to do or what he's thinking. And my fear is that, you can't bring, I think John Fox his contract's up after the end of this year, isn't it?
I want to say he has one more year.
Let me take a look.
After this.
I thought this might have been the end of a contract, but either way, he's not coming back.
Right.
And so you're stuck. You've made that choice that he's going to be gone, which is, the only choice. But then that puts you in a position of you have to hire somebody. And if the right guy isn't there, then you've got to hand the keys to the wrong guy out of necessity. That's the scary part.
Yeah. And, I think it's really interesting to look at this situation compared to 2014, because I think right now people are a bit more like skeptical or nervous, kind of like what you said about the kind of coach that they're going to end up hiring for next year. Whereas the Trestman era, the attitude was pretty much anyone's better than Trestman. Hire anyone, he's better than Trestman. Where now I think that we've seen that you really have to get the right coach to fit a system, especially since we're in a situation now where we have a franchise quarterback we're trying to groom here. So I think that this time around, this next upcoming Bears hire is going to be really looked at closely by the fans, even more than the last time.
Yeah, because this is, the clock. Ryan Pace has done a lot of things to sort of prevent his judgment clock from starting. When he hired with Ernie, of course, he hired the very safe pick with John Fox, kind of delayed his judgment clock from starting, because well, you know what? We brought in a veteran coach to ease this transition and help with the rebuild, and this is a rebuild. Didn't draft a quarterback in his first two drafts, so kind of delayed his start. But now, out of necessity, he had to get that quarterback. He gets that quarterback, and now the clock has started. And once he fires John Fox, that clock is going to jump forward to all that time he delayed it. It's going to jump forward, because once he makes that that head coach choice, that's all on him. The quarterback, the two right things you have to hit on, quarterback and head coach. He's made those two choices in the same, back-to-back off seasons. And so it's going to be all on him to make this right. And if there's not a turnaround and at least a major push next year, then Ryan Pace has got to be in a hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very awkward time where we're sitting here saying, well, the coach and the GM have been around here the same amount of time. When they fired everyone after the 2014 season, they brought on a new GM, Ryan Pace, and a new coach, John Fox. We're kind of in that point now. We're saying we definitely want the coaching gone, where Pace, not everyone wants him gone, even though some do. It's a very, very slippery slope for him right now, and one bad step and that's probably the last straw for him. But I don't see him being fired, Ryan Pace, and I don't think it would necessarily automatically make everything better. I think it's one of those things where Ryan Pace has a very thin line, but I'm willing to give him one more year. I'm willing to let him hire a coach, and I'm willing to let him draft one more time and make a few more moves. And that next year is the biggest test for him. I mean, if nothing gets better next year, then I think you gotta to can. But John Fox, his time is long past. So it's a very awkward time, because a lot of times you see GMs and coaches in the NFL are kind of on the same length, where the GM gets fired, coach gets fired. I know that's not always the case, but we saw it with the Bears the last time, and we've seen it with other teams in the past. But it's not quite the case with the Bears right now, even though some people may think it is and some people don't think it is.
I heard, I can't remember which, it was one of the Bears beat writers, and they were talking about Ryan Pace, and it's going to be interesting because their cycle with the contract is going to be different than Ryan Pace's, which might scare some head coaches, because if Ryan Pace gets fired, that a new GM is going to come in and fire them mid-contract. And
yeah,
that I honestly don't know why they would make somebody be afraid, because you're going in. If you're going to go in being afraid that you're going to get fired, then you don't deserve to be the head coach. You should just be out of the picture. You should withdraw from contention. You should go in there going, you know what? I don't care that his contract is going to end before mine does, because I'm going to go in there and win. And if we're winning, then you know what? He's getting an extension, then I'm getting an extension, because we're winning. That's how you should go in. That's the mentality you should have. You should just assume, you're like, all right, we've got the quarterback in place, the most crucial part of this. Now let's build around it and figure out how to make this team win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that a lot of people need to keep in mind here is that you want to give Pace the benefit of the doubt with some things, and you want to kind of give the coaching the benefit of the doubt of some things, but there's such a fine line between winning and results and trying. And I mean, you can put together something that looks solid on paper, but if you don't get results pretty soon, you're going to be gone. And that goes for GMs and coaches. And I think people just need to realize that going into this process forward with a new coach, as we most likely see it'll happen, that, you know, I don't see whoever's going to come in, whoever it is. I think that they may be lying on very thin ice, because this losing has gone on very long, and I think that they need to get things going and contend really quick.
Yes, I agree.
And I know that was kind of a long trailing explanation, but long story short, you got to succeed very quickly, because you have your asset in place in the quarterback, and you have a number of pieces. You need to turn this around within a year. I mean, this should be really the last down low rebuilding year. I mean, next year they got to start thinking about contention, or at least 500 play.
Yeah, I absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just kind of looking at what ESPN ranks as the top jobs for potential coaches, and they have it as Houston number 1, Cleveland number 2, even though I don't think Hugh Jackson's going anywhere, and Bears number 3. So, I mean, there's a lot of pieces in the place to make a head coach want to come here, but you know, I just don't know if there's any stellar options, because when the Bears bring in a new head coach, you've already got a GM that's a wallflower, not very talkative, not in front of the fans, doesn't like to be the face of this franchise. You need to bring a head coach in that's going to be that. He's got to be somebody that's walks in with swagger, that is, wins the fans and the media over, because you know what is people don't like John Fox. There's a reason they don't like John Fox. He's not winning, and he doesn't give you straight talk, and he's argumentative. He makes it seem like everyone else doesn't know what they're doing when he's the one that can't coach his way out of a wet paper bag.
Well, and look, I mean, one thing that really spoke to me yesterday, that really didn't surprise me. It seems like once a week there's a Fox quote that we talk about from the post game, and yesterday's was talking about punting instead of going for it on fourth down when they were down by 10, and he said that he felt good about the field position by punting at the 45 when they were 4th and 1. And you're a team that has nothing to lose. It just, every week there's some BS like that. I mean, do you think anybody really likes that? The answer is no.
No, they played so conservative for a team that has absolutely nothing to lose against a team that's fighting for their playoff life. And you just, it was such a piss poor coaching job and getting guys ready to go after, it was just really fitting for John Fox to be like, well, I can't have two good games in a row. Is you played a good game against the Bengals, but it's just turning out that it was, I asked last week, is this more that the Bengals just gave up or the Bears played well? And, I think the consensus was a little bit of both. And we're starting to see that it was probably a whole lot more in the column of the Bengals gave up than the Bears played well.
Yeah, the Bengals are just a train wreck right now.
So I just, there's not much to talk about this game. You played it safe for the most part. Your offensive game scheme was bad because you had a rookie quarterback with no receivers throwing 46 times with a piss poor offensive line. And you lost 2 more offensive linemen during the game. And you ended up having to bring back up, you replaced Tom Compton, who was hurt. Then you had to move Ronus Grasu into center and Cody Whitehair over to other guard position. So there was 3 switches on offensive line in the middle of the game, in the middle of the offensive line. And you're just like, nah, let's not run. Let's just not run. And you're not aggressive at, trying to score points. And, your defense just had no pass rushers. Lamar Houston was far and away your best pass rusher.
It's funny. I grumbled when he came back, but he's actually played well since coming back.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that, but randomly, just a random thought here. Speaking of playing well, playing not, is it so weird how Kyle Fuller looks like a Pro Bowler 1 minute, and then the next minute he looks like a practice squad guy that's been cut by 3 different teams in 1 year? Is that weird to me?
Mean, he had a rougher time yesterday than you would have wanted, but he was out there with no safety help, and he was on much better receivers than he had been previously. And there was the one really bad play where Golden Tate just made him bite it. But, I watched that play on freeze frame, watched frame by frame, and I was just stunned. That was more of when Brian Urlacher got faked out by Tom Brady than it was that this guy can't tackle. It is Golden Tate just planted that foot.
Warriors play football now? Cool.
Yeah, they still play better than the Bears. His Golden Tate just planted that foot. It just stopped on a dime. And Kyle Fuller just had a blowout trying to stop two. It was bad. And, it was a bad game all around by the Bears.
And, the whole thing with Kyle Fuller is, and I'm not just talking specifically about yesterday, but I'm just saying year round.
Yeah. And I don't even know, this is a team that needs to just have a wholesale change in the offseason. They need to figure out what to do to cut down on these injuries, these serious injuries. I mean, twisted ankles here and there, guys with sore shoulders here and there. Those are things that happen. But with the number of just catastrophic injuries the Bears have, you got to get to the root of that problem. Got to bring in more top-end talent and bottom-end depth, new head coach, and weapons for this quarterback. And that is a big list to do that you've had 3 years to do, and you're trying to do it all in 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, this might be, I know this sounds like a broken record, but this might be the biggest offseason for the Bears. I know we said that last year. I know we said that the year before. And every time we say it, the narrative changes week after week. And yes, I'm very pissed about it. But to your point, you're right. Because of just the laundry list of things to do. Even the small things, like you said, like, conditioning, training. I mean, the amount of injuries that this Bears team has suffered the past 3-4 years is beyond ridiculous. I don't know of any other team that's had this many injuries. It took away a squad that was probably fairly competitive, and I would argue that a fully healthy Bears team under good coaching, I think they'd be a 500 team. Would they be elite yet? No, there are still a lot of holes on the roster, but I think they'd be a 500 team. But you have the bad coaching. You're going to have to address all of that. And though I like Vic Fangio, it's probably best to just clear house. And you have to talk about the whole athleticism and the training and whatnot, to prevent these injuries, building the depth and drafting more. And there's so much to do.
Yeah, I'm quickly looking at the Bears salary cap on overthecap.com, and it lets you, if you cut players or trade players or do other things, what your salary cap is. And for 2018, if you are to make the following cuts, cut Glennon, cut Pernell McPhee, cut Bobby Massey, cut Marcus Wheaton, cut Marcus Cooper, cut Quentin Demps, cut Jarrell Freeman. Do you know how much salary cap the Bears have for next season?
Oh, God. I can't imagine. How much?
$80.3 million.
Wow.
That is plenty of money to bring back Kyle Fuller, to bring back Prince Amukamara. You add add a real wide receiver, possibly an edge rusher. You could really overhaul this team. And I know Ryan Pace has said things like, well, we need to build through the draft. Is, you know what? You haven't had enough hits in the draft to change this team. You need to take this money and fix all of your holes, and then going forward, hit on your draft picks to sustain this. That's how you got to do it.
Well, exactly. I mean, yeah, building through the draft is one of the key things to building a winning football team, but you have to sign free agents too. I know it's not like baseball where the free agency market is a really big thing and you have these sweepstakes for players, but you still have to go out and sign people. And all those people that you listed, I would imagine have a great chance of getting cut. I think there are some that will definitely get cut. Mike Glennon, probably Pernell McPhee. I mean, the guy's way too injury prone. You said what? Marcus Cooper and Marcus Wheaton? You said those two, right?
We won't even miss them.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, Cooper's been a disaster. In my opinion, he should have been cut after that Steelers game, but that's just me. So yeah, I mean, you cut all those guys, you have all that room. Don't be afraid to spend it. I mean, Don't just say, I'm just going to draft everything and then we won't really worry about free agency. You got to worry about free agency. And even if you're just spending a little money here or there for depth guys, that's just part of it. That's what you got to do. And I think that if the Bears have that much flexibility, if they make the cuts that you just said, or most of the cuts you just said, and you had over $50 million in cap space next year, I think that it would be a great time to take full advantage of that because, like I said earlier, your window to rebuild is very, very small now. You got to start turning it around soon. Take that to your full advantage.
Yeah, you got to.
Commit your scouting and work as much as free agency as you do in the draft. Prioritize both, not just one over the other.
You've got to hit a home run in free agency, and you got to hit a home run in the draft. Just period.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan Pace has had some good picks and some picks that haven't worked out. The biggest thing is the free agents have not been good. And, well, if you're going to have a lot of cap next year and you are indeed going to spend some money on free agents, well, you better hope that these free agents work out better.
Yeah, you can't have a Marcus. You've got to have way more Akeem Hickses than you do Marcus Coopers. Way more.
Yeah, I mean, Akeem Hicks has probably been the most successful Pace move, you would argue, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
That's not draft related.
Absolutely. So, that's just where we're at. Brian Pace just has all the burden on his shoulders of making sure they hit on the draft, hit on free agency, and hit on head coach. And the only person he can blame for this situation is Ryan Pace.
Yep. The pressure is all on him. I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, when you thought that all the work he had to do, I was just thinking in terms of draft and training, conditioning, and then you mentioned all these other things. And, basically, he's got to build a winner very, very soon in any possible way. He's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to talk Bears anymore. We ripped that Band-Aid off. Do you want to talk Bulls, Hot Stove, Blackhawks, or would you like to dive in with our top 10 list?
I think we should save the top 10 for last. Best for last.
Let's go Hot Stove.
How about some Hot Stove?
So the big news
is
something that I would never in a million years would have expected. The Cubs are in on the Yu Darvish.
Yeah, that was quite surprising. I pretty much had eliminated Yu Darvish from the possibility list going into this offseason. What I said was, okay, Darvish probably isn't going back to the Dodgers, and the Cubs are probably not going to get him, because my thought process was the two most valuable pitchers on this market are Jake and Darvish. And if they were going to go after one of them, you think it would be re-signing Jake. But to our surprise, they seem to be trying to kick some tires on Darvish.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it is we all assumed that Alex Cobb would be in this rotation, and, his experience with Madden and the pitching coach, Jim Hickey, and the Cubs being a winning team with money, that Alex Cobb, it was just all signs pointed towards him going to the Cubs. But I'm hearing that his agent is pushing for $20+ million per season for Alex Cobb, which is,
for a guy that's a solid four.
Yeah, there's way too much money for Alex Cobb. And if you're going to be already paying that kind of money for a pitcher, then you know what? You might as well pony up a few more $1 million a year and throw it at Yu Darvish, who's going to make you have a starting rotation that's going to rival the Nationals.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one thing that I think is really important to keep in mind here is that the market right now for pitchers, the prices are very, very high, and people saying, why aren't they signing? Why aren't they signing? Like, people thought they would, and why the hot stove hasn't been incredibly hot this offseason is, well, I think it's the prices on all these arms are high. I mean, when you have Alex Cobb if you have their company asking for $20+ million a year, I mean, what do you think other pitchers are going for, especially a Scott Boras agent and Jake Arrieta? I mean, think about that.
Yeah. So you're the Cubs, you've got this money, and you're not going to throw it at Arrieta. It's too many years, too much money. Boras is asking for $200 million contract.
For a guy over 30.
For a guy over 30 who has already had to transition the way he pitches because he can't throw the fastball like he used to. It's a scary thing. That's committing. If you're going to give $200 million to somebody, it better be somebody that you are absolutely just locked down sure of. And I don't know what you're going to get with Jake Arrieta after 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously never going to see 2015 again because that was absolutely historic. And though I do think Arrieta could still be a good pitcher for a few years, that kind of price, you are really, really committing to that. And one thing I'm going to ask myself is, the prices, are they going to maintain if they don't get signed? Any of them. If Darvish, Arrieta, Cobb, whatever, if they don't get signed for a while, then you would think that their prices would start to go down and you'd see more teams make realistic bids for them. But, right now, it's just very expensive across the board. I mean, I don't really know what Darvish's camp is asking for exactly. I don't know. I don't even know if he's a Boras agent or not. I don't think he is. But you just got to think that right now, most teams are like, these pitchers are ridiculous in terms of their prices. And the top pitcher prices are for guys that are over 30 or have had some sort of injury, whether it's Tommy John or something else. And that's risky.
It's very risky. Very risky. Why is it so hard to figure out who Darvish's agent is?
Yeah, I really don't think it's Scott Boras.
I think we would know if it was Scott Boras.
Yeah, because Scott Boras makes himself public about his clients. He was talking about Arrieta this offseason. I mean, that's his crown jewel. That's a free agent. When Chris Bryant was coming up, we heard all from Scott Boras regarding Chris Bryant. And we know that Scott Boras is not going to forget when the Cubs held him down in Iowa for the first 2 weeks of 2015. So keep that in mind.
It's looking like Arn Tellem.
Let's see what Baseball Reference says. Baseball Reference says Joel Wolf and Nick Hancock.
Oh, it was Arn Tellem.
And it used to be Arn Tellem.
Okay. So yeah, he doesn't have Boras, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
But so that's interesting. The other big news is we had talked the previous week, the rumor was the Cubs possibly trading for Manny Machado. But now it seems the White Sox are pushing for the trade for Manny Machado.
Very, very odd. And I've listened to so many different people in the city of Chicago, whether it's sports radio, writers, and they're just trying to make sense of it all. And it's difficult.
I mean, my concern, it's not like if you are going to get Manny Machado and part of the deal is he has to sign a new contract. I get that because he's still young enough where in 3 years, he's going to be the senior leader. He's going to be the Anthony Rizzo on your team. I get that, but he's a free agent after this upcoming season. And
he'd be stupid not to test the market.
Absolutely stupid. It would be one of the, it's not like Jose Quintana or Chris Sale where they were arbitration eligible, and they signed a long-term deal for under market value because to avoid the arbitration and to have that security. This is not that situation. Manny Machado is going to make stupid money, and he is going to figure out who's going to pay him the stupidest money. And he's just got 1 year left to go on it, and he's already got money in the bank. So it's a no-brainer. It's not like a pitcher where your arm can just tweak. It would have to take an awful lot for a position player to have that same kind of impact from an injury.
Especially one with his athleticism and build.
So he would be stupid. And I get the White Sox probably feel like if they don't have him in their building, it's much harder for them to sign him as a free agent with no history. But like I just don't get that trade, is because he's not going to re-sign with you. He's going to sign with somebody that's going to spend more money and that already is an established winning program like the Yankees. But so I just don't understand it. If if he had more years on that contract, or they knew that he would re-sign, then I'm all for it. It's not the bringing in the player. It's spending a lot of that, farm system currency and giving it to a guy that's going to play for you for 1 year.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting scenario if you look at multiple sides of this, because for Baltimore, they have a great asset that they're probably going to lose after this year because, like you say, he's going to test the market, and Baltimore is probably not going to spend, $250, $300 million on him. I mean, the chances of him going to the Yankees or the Dodgers or a team with a bunch of money would be much greater, I think, than going back to Baltimore. So Baltimore would probably want to get something in return so they have something to kind of rebuild on. But we also know that there's no way in hell they're going to directly trade with the New York Yankees. The owners made that pretty clear. So the Orioles are inclined to make a trade, not with certain teams, though. The White Sox, I think they feel that their best chance to get Machado and to get him to stay, like you said, would be trading for him before his initial contract is up. But the whole thing is, he's going to test the market. We know he's going to test the market, and there would be no guarantees. And it also sounded really clear that the White Sox had no intention of trading for Machado and then just flipping him right away. I mean, first of all, wouldn't that be kind of pointless?
The only path I see that this makes sense, knowing that if you trade for him, he's not re-signing with you, is if the rumor is, they're going to give up Lucas Giolito. I think that's what I heard. Is if you think that Giolito is not going to be what you think he is, and you're just going to try to dump him off, and you bring in a year of Manny Machado, and he puts butts in the seats, so you keep that attendance going, and then when he leaves, then you get that compensatory pick. That's the only, and that is the only way I can see this working out. If there's a sensible reason for this, it's the only thing I can think of.
Right, and I think that the thing that would be difficult there, I mean, if that all worked out for the White Sox, that could potentially be something good there, but what do the Orioles want from Machado? They're probably going to want some good stuff. We know that the White Sox don't want to part with like Michael Kopech or Reynaldo Lopez. I mean, they're their two probably most important pitching prospects right now, because Giolito, I think, is still kind of questionable. Both of the Nationals and some of the minor league stuff we've seen, he's been kind of up and down. But, Reynaldo Lopez looks really good, and Michael Kopech has a lot of potential there. So they're not going to want to trade him. So I don't know if there's going to be really an agreement between the two sides for a potential trade. I know it sounded like from the reports that they were, quote, going hard, but if they were restricting a lot of their top prospects, then it's probably not something the Orioles would agree on. So I just don't see this really happening either way. Frankly, I'd rather the White Sox get him than if like the Cardinals got him for obvious reasons. But I've trouble seeing this actually happening, and I don't know if these talks or rumors are really going to be around much longer. But there was a lot of people saying that they thought that Machado was going to try to be traded by the end of this week, and it's Sunday going into the new week. So who knows what's going to happen, but it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and I heard rumors that the Cubs were interested in flipping Addison Russell for him, and Addison Russell being tempting because of all the years that he has of team control.
4 years, yeah.
And the Cubs just flipping him and putting him as the shortstop. And for the Cubs, it's great because he's going to help you this year. Right now, you put him in that lineup with Bryant and Rizzo and Contreras and Schwarber, and that's a pretty formidable lineup. And then once he signs somewhere else after next season, is you just put all your eggs in a basket and try to bring in Bryce Harper. All that money comes off the books.
Yep. Now, my thoughts on that is, if the Cubs did that, would I stand up and protest? Not necessarily, but it wouldn't be my ideal situation. Look, Manny Machado on the Cubs would be great, but it's just the contract situation, and the idea is to build years of sustained contention, and trading a controllable guy away for a guy with a 1-year deal, it's just risky. Now, it could pay off, but it is risky. I just am not sure that's in the Cubs' priority list right now, is to do something like that. I think that their true intentions this offseason are to get as much quality pitching as they can. And that seemed to me, that whole thing seemed more like a hypothetical scenario, not something that's realistically going to happen.
I agree. And you're right. It's one of the things is, if it happened, would I stand up and cheer? No. But would I throw tomatoes and protest? No. I would just sit back for a year and watch Manny Machado crush home runs for the Cubs.
Hey, it would be fun. And he's a hell of a glover too. I mean, that guy can field his position as well as anybody. And if you put Machado with Bryant and Baez/Zobrist and Rizzo on that infield, boy, going to be hard to squeak a ground ball through them.
Well, I mean, in those days that you have a ground ball pitcher and you want Bryant's bat in the lineup, you throw Bryant in the outfield and you put Machado at third, Baez at short, Zobrist at second, and Rizzo at first, and suddenly that infield is just like an impenetrable. That it's like having Brooks Robinson and Cal Ripken over on the other side.
Well, that'd be your perfect Tyler Chatwood lineup right there.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, Hot Stove has been interesting this year because it's been pretty quiet, and usually you have. You want the big name guys to start signing before Christmas, and it's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that people kind of expected some of the big time pitchers like Arrieta and Darvish not to sign right away because of the whole market thing and whatnot, and the price and all that. So I'm not really surprised they haven't signed yet. But I really like kind of the small moves the Cubs have been doing. I expect them to make more moves, whether big or small. But I really like the most recent move they made with Pat Cishek, or Steve Cishek, whatever his name is, the reliever that used to be on Seattle and the Cardinals. Pretty sure he had a career ERA below 3 and a career FIP below 3. So I really like the Cubs just stacking on as many arms as they can, and I know that they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, all these moves just put them in a position where they don't need to do anything else, but everything else will be gravy. They signed Drew Smiley to a 2-year deal, and he's a guy that maybe comes back at the end of the season, but if not, he's brought in for 2019.
He didn't cost much, so it's high risk, high reward. Not more like low risk, high reward, I should say. Sorry.
I think he's a guy that they look at as they don't want him sitting unsigned, because once he comes back, people are going to want him. They're going to stash him away and pay him this year to just sit and rehab from Tommy John. They signed Tyler Chatwood, and they already have Mike Montgomery, who's clamoring to be a starter. And you've got him sitting there. So if you don't bring anybody else, you're not in a bad spot. But if you're able to make a splash and bring in a Yu Darvish, then suddenly you're like, well, we're pretty stacked.
Yeah, and I mean, the cool thing is that even though we knew we needed to address both starting and bullpen pitching, they had a pretty good core no matter what, especially in the rotation with Quintana, Lester, and Hendricks. And now you're just kind of adding more depth to it. I think Tyler Chatwood, I really like him. The 58% ground ball rate, really good with their infielders. You saw his ERA on the road was much lower. His batting average against was below 200. His OPS was significantly lower. The rate that he was getting hard was much lower on the road. And he has some of the best spin rate in baseball. He was called elite by several analysts, saying that his spin rate was elite. If he just gets that command under control, works with Jim Hickey, then I think he's got a lot of promise to be a really good 4 or 5 on this team.
Yeah, I agree. If you bring in a front end of the rotation guy, then he suddenly becomes your 5. And having a 5 that has such a good spin rate and a ground ball rate with a good infield team, that makes you a really formidable team because there's no holes, there's no weak spot in your rotation.
Right. Now, I wanted to get your opinion on one thing. Have you heard the whole Mike Montgomery stuff?
About either wanting to be traded or be a starter?
Yeah, what's your opinion on that?
I think it's probably... I'm sure he wants to be a starter, and once he can establish himself as a starter, once he comes into his contract year, and even for arbitration, is he's going to be due more money. So it makes sense for him on his end to push for that, because if you don't, if you're a reliever, you're not going to get anywhere near the money that you do as a starter, even a bad starter. So it makes sense, but he doesn't really have much leverage. And, is it better to be a reliever on a good team or a starter on a bad team?
Yeah, I think the whole, he wants out of the Cubs. He's, he doesn't want to be here. Oh, bad teammate. I think that's kind of being blown a little bit out of proportion. I think he's just kind of talking about he wants to be a starter. He thinks he could do it and that he has shown the ability to do it. I don't think that you could say, he's not going to be a reliever now because he wants to be a starter. No, I think he will still play on the Cubs as a reliever, spot starter for the time being. I don't think he's just going to suddenly sit down and protest and not play. I know Jed Hoyer said he was a little surprised by the comments. And yeah, I think it's fair to say if you were surprised by the comments. I was a little bit too at first, but I really think that it's not going to be one of those things where he's going to refuse to play if he's not a starter. I just think that's him expressing his desire to start.
Yeah, if it was him demanding trades, and it wouldn't be a surprise to the front office staff. So I just think it's probably way more blown out of proportion than what reality is.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not really reading too much into it. You see players say this kind of stuff, and frankly, by spring training, I think it'll all kind of be forgotten, especially depending on the moves they make. And if Mike Montgomery ends up becoming a starter, like a 5th starter, then yeah, so be it. I think he's got the promise there. Obviously, the consistency kind of lacked, but he had some really good starts last year.
Yeah, he did. He's a good pitcher.
Love the curveball. The curveball's got great movement on it. It's the command that needs work.
So the only other hot stove thing that I could think of that has, that's worth talking about is apparently the Blue Jays are hot and heavy for Abigail Garcia.
I really didn't hear much of that.
Yeah, I heard two reports. So Avi Garcia, they're really interested in him, which makes me a little more confused, because if the White Sox want to trade Avi Garcia and bring in Manny Machado, what is the end game here? What is the end game? If you're trying to trade Avi Garcia, that means your rebuild is still going, ongoing, because you're just going to suck more next year, get a better draft pick, and bring in whatever haul you can get for Avi Garcia. And that makes sense. But if you're going to bring in Manny Machado and get rid of Avi Garcia, where does the sense come in? I think Rick Hahn is way too smart to not have some sort of big plan, and this doesn't seem like it's making sense.
When the whole Manny Machado rumors came out for the White Sox, I swear to God that Kenny Williams stomped into the room and said, "I'm taking back over."
It totally is a Kenny Williams move.
Isn't that one of the first things you thought of when you heard that? When I saw that, I'm like, wait, is Kenny Williams in charge again?
I just picture him riding in on a horse with a cowboy hat going, "Yeehaw, Manny Machado, gotta get him." And I know he doesn't sound like that at all, but that's just what he did in my head.
Is Hawk speaking for him or something?
It's like a cross between Hawk and Kenny Williams.
Yeah, there you go. You'd see him entering the room and lassoing Rick Hahn and tying him up in the corner and taping his mouth shut. And he's like, "All right, we're going to trade for Machado, and then we're going to trade for Josh Donaldson, and then we're going to trade for, I don't know, some other older guy.
Matt Kemp."
But Matt Kemp, perfect. That would be such a Kenny Williams White Sox move.
Is Jim Thome available?
What's good old Juan Uribe up to these days?
Juan Uribe.
Juan Uribe.
And we need to anchor our bullpen with Bartolo Colon.
He'd be great long relief. I hear Chipper Jones would like to come back as a DH.
What's Yaz up to?
Oh, God. Well, Yaz, he'd come back and, boy, he'd be the best fielder we've ever seen.
You got that TW.
Hey, they brought back AJ Pierzynski as an ambassador or something? And didn't they also bring back Jose Contreras and I think one other person? Was it Omar Vizquel?
I don't know.
I knew that. I knew they brought back AJ. I knew they brought back Jose Contreras. But when I saw that, I blinked for a second. I'm like, oh my God, Kenny Williams really is back. I'm like, oh wait, as ambassadors.
Tim Raines.
Oh, Tim Raines.
Okay, Pierzynski and Jose Contreras.
Okay, Tim Raines. Why was I thinking Omar Vizquel? I don't know. But yeah, there you go.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I don't understand. We'll see what happens with Hot Stove, because there's a lot of interesting things being said, and clearly most of them won't happen. But I'm hoping as a Christmas present, we get a fifth starter in here. Whether that be a front end guy, end guy, or a back end guy, it'd be nice to have that before Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. And players like to sign before the new year for the most part. So, hopefully we see something fairly soon. Like you said, Christmas is in a week, so within the next 2 weeks before the new year, I'm with you on hoping that we see something. not just for the Cubs, but more interesting moves around baseball, because I just like seeing really cool, interesting baseball moves. It's a fun time of year. Even when there's no baseball being played, I think MLB offseason just beats any other offseason by far.
I don't know. I love NFL offseason, but Major League Baseball is really fun in December. And like you said, it's really nice for players really like to sign before Christmas because they're signed. The nerves are done. They can relax and enjoy the holidays and, know where they're going, know what sort of financial situation they're in, and it just eases their mind. So usually they like to sign, right around now. The longer you drag this out, I mean, pitchers and catchers reporting is not that far away.
No, it's not. I mean, it's early February, so you have like a little over a month after the new year.
We're looking right now like 5-6 weeks. So it's not that much time. So you just, these guys got to start signing at some point. And once they do, they start falling like dominoes, because once one guy goes, other teams start to panic because they're like, oh, the guy we want is gone. Who can I get?
Yeah. I mean, you gotta beat the competition, and you gotta evaluate the market and how guys are going and what they're going for. And like you said, one goes, they fall like dominoes, because it's like the stock market. Everyone goes crazy and they need to get what they want to get done. So yeah, I think this next week we're going to see a lot here. I mean, we're recording this show currently on a Sunday night, and tomorrow is Monday. And when a lot of people are listening to this show, can't help but wonder if a big move or two is going to be made either by the Cubs, the White Sox, or any other baseball team, because, start of a new week, things happen. So here's hoping for some excitement, I guess. I really, really, really would like the Cubs to have another starter and another bullpen piece by the new year. Whether that bullpen piece is re-signing Wade Davis or someone else, and like you said, if it's a front end, back end starter, just anything, I'd like to see 2 more arms in each of those categories signed before the new year. That's my hope.
Christian Yelich would be nice in a Cubs hat.
Oh, you ain't kidding. I mean, you see the way that the Marlins are fire selling, I should say fire sailing. Well, they are kind of sailing away, so you could say fire sailing, sailing, both same thing. They're getting rid of everybody. I would love giving people away. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's to clear away salary, but I mean, think about what the Marlins got for Giancarlo Stanton, and think about the teams that said no to Giancarlo Stanton and the offers that they were making the Marlins. Those offers had a lot more than what the Yankees offered, especially like the Cardinals. They offered multiple prospects and to eat a lot of some of the salary. If Giancarlo Stanton would have waived his no trade for that, then the Marlins would not only clear cap, but they would have more prospects.
And there's still more salary they got to clear, because I was reading up that it's apparently they've got a debt to spending ratio, or a debt to income ratio that violates the baseball rules. So they've got to clear money until they get to a certain point. So they're going to fire sale. They're going to keep selling guys, and Cubs are silly for not trying to cash in.
Oh my God, we're having a fire sale.
I wonder if they have like an inflatable, like one of those like inflatable gorillas like outside of the car dealerships, and they're like, "Come on down, I'm crazy Derek Jeter, and I'm giving all kinds of good deals from players here."
It's one of those things where the arms are just like sleeves that like fans blow through, so they're waving in the wind.
Oh man, like that's
because I mean, who else is really under big contract on that team other than Yelich?
Let's find out. Marlins salary,
because D. Gordon is gone, Stanton is gone, Osuna is gone.
Um,
Yelich. Oh, Justin Bohr, would that be one of them?
Let's see. Starlin Castro is making $10 million.
And it seems like they're already kind of maybe interested in trading him. I know the Mets are
Wei
interested
Yen
in
Chen
him.
is making $10 million. Martin Prado is making 13.5.
Martin Prado is still a thing. Wow.
Brad Ziegler, $9 million. Junichi Tozawa, $7 million. And Christian Yelich, $7 million.
So Christian Yelich isn't making near the top as some of these other guys are. What my understanding is, I don't really know the details of Yelich's contract, but it sounds like it's team control, but not a lot of money per year.
Let's see. His salary for next year is $7 million. Then it escalates to 9.75, then to 12.5, then 14, then 15.
Okay, so it gets bigger as time goes on, but either way, he's under team control for multiple years.
Yeah, he signed a 7-year, $50 million contract.
Okay.
Which goes through the 2022 season.
Gotcha. So basically, he's rotting there all by himself right now.
Yes, and he could be had. He could be had. He's right there. But it's hilarious is Martin Prado takes up almost 20% of the Marlins salary.
Wow. Who would have thought that like Martin Prado of all people would be taking up a lot of salary on your team? I mean, that goes to show how much the Marlins have already sold already, but boy, would Christian Yelich look great in a Cubs uniform.
Yeah, it's that would be nice. That would be real nice. You have the
I mean, that would solve the whole leadoff problem right there.
It definitely would. It would create a log jam in the field, but that's a good problem to have.
That's a good problem to have, yeah. I mean, I got his career numbers right here. He was 25 last year. Well, he just turned 26, so he'll be 26 this year. And his on-base percentage last year, 369, 376, 366, 362, 370. That's pretty good. Last year, he hit 18 home runs. The year before, he hit 21 home runs. So even though his first few years in the big leagues, he wasn't much of a home run hitter, the last 2 years, he's had 21 home runs and 18 home runs. And if you put that together, that's an 833 OPS and a 460 slugging. Not bad for that kind of player.
Yeah. His projections look fantastic for 2018.
I mean, he's going to be entering his prime years because the mid to late 20s are like the entering of the prime years. So, look for him to maybe even make an all-star game soon because he's got some pretty good numbers here. And I think it's kind of gone underappreciated by a lot of people.
Yeah. So I would be more than happy to have Christian Yelich.
Me too. And I know I'm on Baseball Reference, and I know B-WAR isn't really as accurate as F-WAR, but just for sake of being on Baseball Reference, he was a 1.9 WAR last year and a 3.9 WAR last year, 5.3 WAR in 2016, and he's been a positive WAR player ever since, and he's been a 3.5 or greater B-WAR plus since 2014. So, good player.
Yeah, it would look real nice in a Cubs uniform. Real nice.
Big time.
All right. Should we talk Hawks or Bulls? We'll make these both pretty quick.
Band-Aid rip, Bulls.
Niko for MVP. Niko's back, baby. Niko's back.
Yay.
They're 5-0 since Mirotic has been back, and he's been playing great. 24 against Boston, 29 against Utah, 22 in the win against Milwaukee. This is totally his ticket out. He's like, well, they wouldn't trade me because I got punched in the face. So let me play really well, because he is disrupting the rebuild.
Yes. Yes, he is. And some would argue that his talent was punched back into him by Bobby Portis.
That's what happened. It's like, whoa, wait, I got, that was a real wake-up call.
It's like he started like solid rookie year, then like got hit and got amnesia, and then he got hit again and the amnesia went away and he remembered how to play basketball.
Yeah, and it's the crazy part is the Bulls are getting ready to get Zach LaVine back, probably in the next 2 weeks, and you're going to team him with Chris Dunn, who's played really well, Lopez, who's been playing well, and Niko is playing well. And you're going to start stringing together wins in this really bad Eastern Conference, and you're going to wind up outside of a top 3 pick, which is what you need. And you're going to
I'll be so pissed if they mess this up.
The Bulls team, the front office is so bad that they can't even lose correctly.
Yeah, I mean, go figure. And I'm hoping they go on another lose streak. I know that sounds bad, but here's the sad reality. If you want to win in this league, you need a superstar. How do you get a superstar? Drafting really high. What do the Bulls have to do? They have to draft really high. Don't get me wrong. It's nice seeing some of the young guys play really well, like Chris Dunn, but they need to draft high. I know you can't tell them to lose. You can't do that, but it's so Bulls.
No, but you know what? Niko's playing well. Sell high. Trade him. Then you lose more.
I know you can't do it till January, but yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, get rid of him. Dump him off. Dump Lopez off. Anybody that's not part of your future building block that's playing well, get rid of him. Lose. Because you need...
Yeah, I mean...
You want a top 3 pick.
Yeah, and I think that they are going to trade that, and they're going to trade Robin Lopez. I mean, I've been saying they're probably going to trade Robin Lopez before the season even started, and I think most people figured that to be the same thing, and you got to sell high on him too. So if you could trade Niko and get good value, and you could trade Robin Lopez, and then start really losing again, great.
Yeah, so... Yeah, you just gotta stop winning. It's it's fun every once in a while to be like, oh man, look what the Bulls did. They dominated this team. I mean, at first you're like, all right, well they beat Boston, but Boston was not playing full strength, and you're like, all right, they took an off night, didn't come through for them, but then they beat Utah and then they beat Milwaukee, and you're like, wait a minute, they're beating teams they're not supposed to beat.
They were beating teams that creamed them last year.
Yeah, so they can't do that. They can't do that. They need to lose. Right now they're the 3rd worst team in the NBA, which gives them something like the 20th or 20% of getting the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, it looked really promising. The first 20 games when they only had 3 wins. I'm like, all right, big pick, here we come. There's no way we could screw this up, right? Then Niko came back. It's so funny how we're talking about a Bulls player doing really well and seeing it as a negative, but it's unfortunate that that's the position the Bulls are in. It's just... Yeah.
All right, so with the being the 3rd worst team, they have a 15.6% chance of winning the number 1 pick, and a 46.9% chance of being in the top 3.
Now, aren't there new lottery rules or something? I mean, did they change that at all? I thought I heard that, but maybe I completely heard that wrong.
I don't know. I'm on tankathon.com, which updates everything.
Well, yeah, I would trust that either way.
because I think before the worst team they automatically went in the top 3. So if they didn't get number 1, they went to 3. Or, if they didn't get 1 or 2, they went to 3. I think that's the way it used to be. But now it's saying that Atlanta is the worst record and they only have a 64% chance of getting a top 3. So, they're making it harder to tank.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I think is kind of important going down the rest of the season is if you do in fact trade Niko and Lopez, or at least one of them, I know we want to lose, but don't hold back just letting the kids go all out. Now, one thing does concern me right now, and that's Lauri Markkanen's back. I mean, at that age and having back problems, that's not something you want to see. But you still want to see these kids play to the best of their abilities and as much as they can. You don't want to fully wreck them, but you want to see them play. And you want to see them play in all sorts of situations because, in the end of the day, this season, you're not playing for anything, so you might as well take chances. Cough, cough, Trubisky Bears, cough, cough. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. I want to put this in this sad perspective. Is the Bulls right now are 8-20, and they're on a 5-game winning streak.
Yeah. Eesh. Everything else. I mean, did they even win 2 in a row before that?
No.
Didn't think so.
Nope. Man, crazy. So I guess that, let's see, anything else? Nope, that's about it for Bulls. Blackhawks.
Yeah, I got nothing else. Up 4-1 late, looking like they're going to win.
Yeah, finally. But with the Blackhawks, you've got some struggles going on. You've got your defenseman in shambles. Seabrook can't play. Franzen's hurt. Jan Ruda's hurt. You're playing Jordan Osterley. There's rumors of Michael Kempney getting traded. They brought up Vili Polka. I don't know what the answer is going forward here.
Osterley actually hasn't looked that bad. I have to give him credit. He hasn't looked that bad. But yeah, it's definitely concerning when your defense has a lot of injuries and they've been kind of struggling throughout the season. Luckily, we have our elite goaltender to help out here. But again, you don't want to put all the pressure on him night in and night out.
Yeah, and as much as I love Vili Polka, I don't see him having long-term impact on this team.
He's an AHL player, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what do you do? Is you've got a lot of bodies, and not most of them aren't working out. You're in uncharted territory with Duncan Keith, with his age and miles. Like I can't think of a comparable guy in modern times that you can say this is what happens at this age with this kind of guy. So you don't know what you're getting with him. You're already seeing what happened with Seabrook is he's not looking good. And then you've got just a lot of unanswered questions with defensemen.
Yeah, and that the way this trend is going with injuries and slowing up defensemen, Carey Crawford, as great as he is, he can't stand on his head night after night.
No,
you just can't rely on that.
It's not a recipe for success.
I mean, it was amazing how long it lasted last year when both Crawford and Darling stood on their heads. Right now, Anton Forsberg has been very up and down. He's shown signs of being good, and he's also had some really rough games. So It's not like last year where you could rely on both Darling and Crawford. Now it's just Crawford.
Yeah, absolutely. And the backup looked good when he just was filling in for a night off for Crawford, but when Crawford was down and you needed him to step up, just didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that was some pretty ugly goaltending the other night. What was it, a week ago or 2 weeks ago now, probably, or whatever it was, against Washington. He gave up some really bad goals in that one.
Really bad. And I get it's a good team. It's got a high-powered offense, but geez, it was beyond miserable.
Yeah, it really was. And that's official game. Blackhawks win 4-1.
That's nice to see. But yeah, so there's a lot of questions with what happens on your blue liners, but there's also a lot of questions with your forwards as well. Richard Panik and Ryan Hartman have not been playing well and been healthy scratches. You've also got Sharp and Lance Buma, who are healthy scratch candidates. Do they bring up Thomas Yurko to try to provide a spark with these guys that are just slumping?
I think one thing that's really important is that they got to get Richard Panik going again.
Yeah, you need him to go. You need him to play well.
What I've liked the past few days, what I've really liked, we're seeing Kane and Tays do Kane and Tays things again.
Yeah, that's always important. Like, you need them to play well because they're your high-powered, superstar, expensive players, and you need them to play like it.
Yeah, exactly. And Kane is 1 goal away from 300, so keep an eye out for that. But, I think one thing that is really kind of funny this past week, look at the games they've won. Let's look at this 5-game win streak now that it's official. They kind of struggled to beat the bad teams. So the Coyotes, they had to get a surge at the end to beat them. They barely beat the Buffalo Sabres in OT.
Yep.
And they barely beat the Panthers.
Yep.
They went to Winnipeg, one of the best, if not the best home team in the NHL all year, crushed them. The Minnesota Wild, though they always get off to kind of slow starts, they're always a solid team against us. We played pretty darn well against them. I just, is that not the epitome of Chicago sports? Play down to the competition and take it to the good guys?
And right now it's December 17th, and the Blackhawks don't play in Chicago again until next year.
Yeah, that's crazy. I looked at the schedule the other day, and they've had quite a few road trips this first half. But from what I remember looking at the schedule, the second half, there's going to be a lot of stretches of home games.
And, they've got days off. So they've got plenty of time off, between now and the next year. So this week they played tonight. They don't play again until Thursday. And then they're off Friday and they play again Saturday, and that's the 23rd. They don't play again after that until the 28th. So they play the 28th, the 29th, and the 31st. So it's a pretty accommodating schedule as far as how many days off they have. I know there's travel days involved, but still getting those days off is nice. And their next home game isn't until January 5th versus the Golden Showers.
Oh man, that's going to be their first trip to the UC, isn't it?
Yep.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun to watch. I'm going to try to get tickets for that as a Christmas present to myself.
You should.
I feel like I've earned it. But yeah, I mean, Vegas is still playing well. They're in second place in that division. neck and neck with the Los Angeles Kings. You've got Nashville, St. Louis, and Winnipeg all playing great in the Blackhawks division. But there's a lot of teams fighting for playoff spots in the Western Conference. There's not too many teams that are just way out of it. Pretty much it's Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very tight race. You look at the teams on top in the standings, and you figured it would take a pretty big collapse for them to kind of fall from that. But boy, you look at just the race in these wild card seeds in the Western Conference, so many teams are in it.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if playoffs were to start today, it would be Dallas and Chicago. But after the next game, one of those teams is going to lose. But you've got Minnesota right there right behind the Blackhawks. Anaheim's only a point out. Calgary's 2 points out. Vancouver's 3 points out. Colorado's 5 points out. Then it starts Edmonton 7 points out. But then so there's a couple of win streaks, and any of those teams are right back into this. This is a real tight race for being more than a third of the way done with the season.
And this is something we're not really used to seeing for the Blackhawks. We tend to see them, at least in third place of the Central or above. I mean, last year they won the division, and they're not used to being kind of racing for the last playoff spot. The last time they did that was 2011 after the salary cap ate them alive. But, we've seen in the past few years that they're at least comfortably in a playoff spot, where this year it's going to be quite a race. And I know last week we talked about what they should do if they're kind of borderline. Maybe they should just go ahead and start thinking about the future. But right now they're on a 5-game winning streak, and they're just going to be thinking about playoffs. So if that's what they want, they got to keep this up, and they got to keep beating teams in their division, because at least they've just beaten Winnipeg and they've just beaten Minnesota. Those are 2 big wins, considering that they've really struggled against the division. But, it's going to get scary when they have to play teams like Nashville or St. Louis in the future, because especially with St. Louis, there's going to be a lot of games against them towards the end of the season.
Yeah. You've got some real tough games coming up here. Not a lot of games coming up, but some tough ones. Dallas is right ahead of you in the standings for the wild card. You got them next. The Devils are in second place in their division. You got them after that. Vancouver's fighting for a wild card spot, and Oilers are fighting for a wild card spot. Calgary is fight for a wild card spot. So you've got a lot of teams that are right in the hunt, that are right behind you. And to put it into perspective, is the Blackhawks are closer to being second to last place in the entire Western Conference than they are to being first place.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, you look at the point totals right now. Nashville leads. They're in first place. They're tied with St. Louis, but they must have the tiebreaker or something currently. They have 46 points, and St. Louis has played more games. They played 35. Nashville's played 32, both with 46 points. Winnipeg 43, Hawks 39, and bottom is 19 with the Arizona Coyotes.
But second to last would be 30 points. So, there's 7 points out.
Sorry, I meant Edmonton, not Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona's just so bottomed out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't even count them anymore.
Yeah, they're the worst team in the league. But they're 7 points from being second to last place, and 9 points from being first. So, it's...
Well, that did just change. They have 39 points now.
Oh, okay. This was NHL.com did not refresh this.
Well, my NHL.com standings just did.
Oh, and now it did. What do you know?
There you go. Yeah, mine just refreshed, so a little different than what I just saw.
Yeah, but yeah, you got to be able to turn this around in a tough schedule. You don't have what are the Rangers looking like? Oh, they're good. You don't have another gimme game until January 14th against Detroit.
Well, I mean, the good news is that they looked really good in Winnipeg, and they looked pretty good tonight against the Wild, who are fighting for a playoff spot. So, hopefully that could kind of spark them a little bit. But yeah, definitely some tough matchups ahead. And I think one interesting thing to do is look at the Western Conference and look at the close teams that you think are a legitimate threat. Let's look at the teams below the Blackhawks, including Dallas, the second wild card. Of those teams, who do you think are the biggest legit threats?
Picking one, I'm going to say Calgary or Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Minnesota or Dallas. Because Minnesota, they always get red hot mid-season. They always do that, and wouldn't surprise me if they do that again. At Dallas, they still have a lot of scoring talent, even though they give up a lot of goals. Their goal differential right now is at dead even. 99 goals for, 99 goals against. So they give up goals, but they score a lot of goals. Anaheim, I think they're just way too banged up right now. Calgary, I'm really on the fence on. I don't think Vancouver is really that good. Colorado isn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton's got talent, but they're just not putting it together. Colorado and Vancouver are hanging in there, but I'm not that worried about them. It's those four teams directly behind the Blackhawks that they got to create some separation from.
Absolutely, because in my opinion, with the Hawks, they don't need a certain seed. They just need to get in. Whether it's a wild card or not, they just need to get in.
Yeah, the hockey seeding is meh because, it doesn't matter. It's not like the NFL where seeding is important, or baseball where seeding is kind of important, or basketball where seeding is important. It's hockey. I don't think it's nearly as important. You can go and easily be a wild card and just zoom through because it's tough matchups all the way along. There's, I can't think of the last time there was just an easy gimme playoff series in the NHL. There's a handful here and there, but for the most part, those are pretty hard fought series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, heck, look at the old playoff format. We've seen 8th seeds beat 1 seeds all the time.
I'm looking at what the matchups would be right now if the playoffs were to start. So the Blackhawks would play. They would play the LA Kings in the first round. And yeah, so the playoff matchups for the Western Conference would be the Kings would play the Blackhawks, Vegas would play San Jose, Nashville would play Dallas, and St. Louis would play Winnipeg.
Intriguing matchups right there.
Those are really intriguing matchups.
Man, playing the Kings again in the playoffs, that would bring back some memories.
Yeah, I mean, but it would be weird because it'd be the first round.
Yeah, not the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, so, I'm excited about that. It's nice to not have to play your division opponent again in the first round.
Well, I mean, the last few years, it's been, okay, we're either going to be playing St. Louis or Nashville in the first round. I mean, that's all it's been.
Yeah, so it's nice to get that, that out of the way. But then you have to go through, guessing, then you'd go on to play like St. Louis or Winnipeg.
Which would be a division opponent either way, but yeah, I mean that would get really tough.
Yeah, so it's it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Fun playoffs. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is a long way to go, but yeah, it's hypothetically it would be fun.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us to our top 10 list.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go through just my top 10, your top 10, or should we each take a turn and just give one? Because mine are not in any order. I just came up with 10.
I kind of have an order, but what would be your number one? I want to see if it's the same as mine.
I'm looking through my list of how I want to rank this. Do I want to go the most exciting play, or I'm going to go, my number one is Mitch Trubisky's touchdown to Adam Shaheen against the Bengals, because it made me excited about the future. Not that it was that crazy of a play, the play itself. It was just what it represented as far as the future of the Chicago Bears.
Okay, interesting. My number one is Wade Davis striking out Bryce Harper to win the division series.
I've got that in my list. I have it listed as Wade Davis 7-out save to win the series.
Yeah, I mean that was a heart stopper of a game, and it'll probably be the second most intense Cubs game I've ever watched in my life, not counting Game 7. Obviously, that'll always be number one.
Yeah, so that was definitely in my top 10 list. You want to give another one?
Yeah. Let's see. This is kind of...
We jumped in a little without kind of much intro, but these are our top 10 Chicago sports moments of 2017, because it's one of those, it's the end of the year and we're getting our wrap ups and our top lists. So these are our top 10 moments of Chicago sports for 2017. So we have my number one is Trubisky's touchdown to Adam Shaheen, and Alex's Wade Davis striking out Bryce Harper to win the series against the Nationals in the first round, which was also on my top 10 list, but not my number one.
Okay, so here's my number two. It was Trubisky's game-winning drive against the Ravens, because that was his first win as a Bear. He made that really great third down pass to set up the game-winning field goal. That's my number two. That
was an alternate on mine. That was just outside the top 10. My number two is going to be Tariq Cohen's punt return touchdown against San Francisco.
Oh, that wasn't on my list, but that was a fun one. Kind of my number three, or close that up there, was the Bears beating the Steelers in overtime. And Cohen's run is kind of part of that, even though he was called out of bounds. That was incredible. And they just ended up winning on the next play.
Let's see. My next one, I have Yadi Molina dropping a third strike that led to Schwarber's 3-run home run where the Cubs beat the Cardinals 6-4.
Yeah. Wasn't that like the second or third game of the season?
I don't remember when it was. I remember that happening, and it was against the Cardinals. It was against Yadi Molina, and Schwarber hit the home run. So it was a lot of good things for me.
Speaking of which, recently I wrote an article for Wrigley Report, and it had my top 5 wins of 2017. So after I share my list with you, I kind of want to share that list with you as well.
Go for it. You want to give another one, or should I give one?
I got another one. Leonis Martin backing up at the warning track, making the catch. Cubs win the division.
That was another one I thought about, but I didn't put that in there. I have Adam Engel robbing Austin Jackson's home run.
Oh, I remember that. That was pretty sick.
Yeah, that one was just just phenomenal. And it was great because he robbed Austin Jackson, who has been known to rob people's home runs. So to rob one from him is extra special.
Yeah, it's like you look at Adam Engel and you're like, he may not be a great hitter, but boy, he could be really exciting in the field.
Yep.
He's an outfield Darwin Barney, let's say that.
He kind of is.
Okay, so this moment I have isn't necessarily a play on the field. This is the one White Sox one I had up just for its importance. That was calling up Yoan Moncada from the minors. I just thought that was a really important moment for the White Sox and their future, so that is on my list as well.
That's a good one. Let's see. My next one, I'm going to go Eddie Jackson with 2 touchdown returns in the win over Carolina.
Yeah, I think it was right outside my top 10 because I did a few honorable mentions. The Carolina win was on that list as well because for what you just said, those plays by Eddie Jackson, awesome. And just the way the defense played really was incredible. And, this season has been another sucky one for the Bears, but at least they can say that their defense held their own and beat both the Steelers and the Panthers, 2 teams that could maybe even potentially play each other in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's true. All right, you want to give your next one?
Yes. 10-1 win opening night for the Blackhawks. 10 goals on the defending champs.
This is mine, but I put it as Brandon Saad's first game back hat trick.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the whole thing, was seeing Brandon Saad score a hat trick.
Yeah. And then my next one is Alex DeBrincat's hat trick.
I got that on there too. That was awesome.
Yeah. All right, so I've only got 2 more. We've gone through 8 of my top 10.
Yeah, I have 3 more, and 2 of them are not on the field. 1 of them was on the field.
Oh, now you've got me intrigued. You want to go ahead?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the one that was on the field. And this was a span over several games, but basically came down to Jose Quintana's complete game shutout of Milwaukee, which wrapped up a 3 out of 4 series, which pretty much put the NL Central race to bed.
That was an honorable mention for me. My next one is Alex Avila's triple to beat Garrett Cole 1-0.
Oh, that was great. That was great. Okay, so these 2 moments are not on the field. Could you take any guess to what they are?
Oh, man. I'm going to guess one is the Cubs trading for Jose Quintana.
No, but that is an honorable mention.
It's going to be Bobby Portis punching Niko Mirotic in the face.
No, but you know what? I should have put that on there.
It should have been number 1. I don't know.
All right, I'll give you one last chance at a guess. I'll give you a hint. It was a very, very emotional 2 nights back-to-back.
The ring ceremony for the Cubs?
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's one.
David Ross retirement?
Well, you got the ring one. The other was the banner. The banner raising ceremony the one night. The ring ceremony the next night.
I don't know why that just, I didn't put that.
I mean, that was the most anticipated banner raising ceremony in the history of this city.
Were those 2 different ones, or was that one combined?
Those were 2 different ones. So we've completed my top 10 list.
All right, my last one. After the Cubs had a 4-game skid going into a game at Colorado, John Lackey comes through and dominates in an 8-1 win.
Yep, I remember watching that game and just dreading it because I'm like, oh God, he's going to get destroyed. And he ends up pitching arguably his best game in a Cubs uniform.
Yep. And I just watched that game in amazement, and I'm like, wait, when's the other shoe going to drop? When's he give up the home run?
I don't need no rootin' tootin' Rockies.
So I want to hear your other list.
Okay, so this is top 5 regular season wins of the 2017 season for the Chicago Cubs. You can find this article at WrigleyReport.com, and I will read to you the list. But first, I have a few honorable mentions I want to get through really quick. So we'll start with the honorable mentions. Rizzo walk-off against the Dodgers on opening night. John Lester in the game in which he hit his first MLB homer and recorded his 2000th strikeout. Cubs rallying down 2-0 in the 8th to win 3-2 against the Cardinals. RBI hits from Rizzo and Bryant. Mount St. Lackey exploding, turning a 2-1 deficit into an 8-2 win, also against the Cardinals late in the season. I'm sure you remember that one.
Yep.
Jose Quintana's dominant Cubs debut, 8-0 win, and the Cubs completing the sweep of the Cardinals in a very wild win late in the season at Wrigley Field. Now we'll get into our top 5. Number 5 was Hayward's go-ahead bomb in extras at Miller Park to win 2-1.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. Number 4, sweeping the Blue Jays with that 10th inning rally down 5-3 and winning 6-5 on the Avila walk-off single.
Okay.
Number 3, Schwarber's game-winning grand salami against the Cardinals in early June.
That was a good one.
The same game that John Lester picked off Tommy Pham.
That was good as well.
That was great. Number 2, I put this as showing the Brew Crew who is boss once and for all. When the Cubs began their 4-game set at Miller Park, down 3-2 with 1 strike to go, Baez ties the game, and Chris Bryant hits the go-ahead 2-run homer.
Yep. We were both very worried about that series, and
Yes, we were.
And it came up huge for the Cubs.
And you know what's funny is they could have swept that series, but Wade Davis just was mortal that one day. But oh well. Now number 1. You have any guess what it is?
Is it one we've already mentioned on our top 10 list?
Yes.
Then it's going to be the ring ceremony.
New.
All right, go for it.
Clinching the division in St. Louis, 5-1 win.
Yep, that's a good one.
Because not only did we clinch the division, we clinched it in St. Louis.
That's always nice because then it just really rubs it in their dumb faces.
All those years of watching them clinch playoff berths and win playoff series, the last 3 years have been just the complete opposite, and it's felt great. Being in the visiting clubhouse in St. Louis and spraying champagne, flying W flags all around Busch Stadium, and just seeing thousands upon thousands of Cub fans in St. Louis. I mean, that 9th inning when they were up 5-1, all the Cardinals fans left. It was just probably 10,000, 12,000 Cub fans that were left.
Yeah. And sorry, ESPN posted a video of Zach Miller walking after nearly having his leg amputated. He's walking in a brace.
Man, good for him. And I know he was back at Hallis Hall the other week. He's had a really positive attitude. He's shown his gratitude to other people on social media. You know, he keeps the positive attitude with himself. You got to give him a lot of credit.
I mean, I root for the guy. I don't think he's ever going to play football again, but
I kind of hope he doesn't because that's risky.
Yeah. You know what? Retire, get back, train like you're going to come back to the NFL and then just use that momentum to lead a normal life and spend it with your family.
Absolutely. And, maybe you'll have a chance to work for the Bears in some other fashion.
Yep.
Just not playing football.
Correct. Correctamundo. So one last thing I want to mention before we end this episode is, did you see Star Wars?
I did.
What did you think?
Overall, I really liked it.
Yeah, me too. There's a couple of parts that I went, but other than that, I'd say like 98% of the movie I loved.
Yep, me too. There were some scenes that were... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I left the theater pumping my fists and ready for more episodes. I was so excited.
Me too. That's exactly how I felt. There were a few scenes that I thought were but overall, really liked it. Really emotional at the end. I thought it was executed very, very well. And I thought, just visually, it looked great. And I look at these new movies and I just love how much better they are than the prequels.
Yeah. And it was funny for me because I went with a big group of people. And three of us, myself and two other people, had seen every single movie in the theater, including A New Hope. So we were old heads. And then there was somebody there who had seen the first movie they ever saw of a Star Wars movie was The Force Awakens. Oh. And somebody else who came in during the prequels. So there was a big group of people that, from different vantage points of their Star Wars fandom, and we all came out of that movie just high-fiving each other. And we stayed in the theater. We went down to the ArcLight Theater, like on Clybourne near Halstead in North Avenue, and we sat in the theater for like an hour afterwards in the lobby, just discussing the movie and where things are going. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was. And I know it's still early, but I really want to talk to you about it. Should we do this as a don't go any further if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert type thing?
Yeah, shut the episode off. We're not going to talk any more sports. So if you don't want Star Wars spoilers, just stop right now.
Yep.
Stop.
Spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead.
You've been warned. All right, go.
Okay. I loved the final confrontation between Luke and Kylo Ren. When we found out he was using the Force and he wasn't actually really there, I almost got out of the seat and started like cheering and yelling. I thought that was just absolutely awesome.
I knew something was up because he looked like the Luke from when he tried to kill Kylo Ren from when Kylo was younger, not the old haggard, grumpy guy that gave up on the Force. So I'm like, something's up.
He looked like Return of the Jedi Luke when you think about it.
So I'm like, what's going on with him? And then when they started firing on him, I'm like, no, he can't be dead. He can't be dead. So what's going on? And I'm like, I'm thinking in my mind, maybe he's already dead and he's a Force ghost right now.
Yeah.
But no, he was just projecting. He was just projecting himself. And I'm like, Luke Skywalker just, got over Kylo Ren again.
And you know what? When you saw him, he mortally die, how it just ended with looking into the suns like he did on Tatooine, I thought that was perfect.
Yeah, it was, it was a pretty awesome movie. There was two parts that I wish they just would have cut out. And one was the casino scene. Thought it was unnecessary.
It was too earthly.
And yeah, it was just weird and it was too prequel-y for me.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was when Luke starts milking that weird creature and drinking the blue milk.
That was weird. There is one scene I thought was incredibly stupid. Can you guess what it was?
Is it where Chewbacca's eating the porg?
No, it's not. I'll give you one more guess.
where the kid is watching the shuttle go overhand and he holds out his ring with the Rebel logo on it?
No. I thought it was so stupid how Princess Leia was blasted into space and was somehow able to float herself back into the shuttle. You were
To Mary Poppins her way back?
Blasted into space. Come on.
Yeah, one moment where I just threw my hands up and was like, come on, is when the First Order blasted their hangar where all the ships were as Poe was walking in, and he took a blast that destroyed an entire hangar of ships and blew up right in his face, and he just got up and was
he was
fine.
perfectly fine.
That was basically the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull refrigerator moment for me.
That's a good way of putting it. I definitely agree. Here's another thing that I absolutely loved. I loved that Yoda was a puppet. It was perfect.
Yes. Yeah, that was awesome and unexpected. I avoided, like the Matrix. I avoided spoilers. I was dodging them left and right. But so I was, seeing Yoda was awesome. The way that Snoke got taken out by Kylo Ren was awesome. The scene where Poe Dameron is messing with the First Order guy, where he's like, "I'm holding for him," and making fun of him. Like, I laughed hysterically. So it was a lot of really good parts.
Definitely. I also thought it was interesting how, like, if you noticed, there was a lot more like humor in it, and it was very like Marvel type humor.
Yeah, and I think that just, it's gone so well for Marvel, and it's really separated them from the DC movies that are just, there's no humor. They're trying to be serious, but it's not doing a good job of it. And they don't want to take themselves too seriously. They want to add some humor into this. And I think they did a really good job.
Especially when Rey is reaching out with her eyes closed, and he's like, "Oh, this is the Force. You can feel the Force. It's just like a leaf."
Yeah, that was funny one too. There's some good parts. I really liked the movie. Like I said, is if you cut out that 2-second thing with the milk and you cut out the casino scene, I think then it goes from, a really good movie to
like I said, movie. The thing with the casino for me, when I say it was too earthly, I mean, like, the characters, they looked like it was either like in a futuristic Earth, it wasn't Star Warsy enough. It wasn't, because you saw them wearing kind of like aristocratic like suits. Though there were like different creatures in that casino, it looked like you were watching something that was taking place on Earth, kind of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was, it was like too slapsticky. It was, I don't know. It looked like Austin Powers-y, and I could have done without that. I get the message that they were trying to convey that, it's not just pure good and evil. There's people that are just in the middle, and I get that. You sort of did that with Benicio del Toro's character too. So one was doing it purely for profit. The other one was doing it to save their neck. But it was a little heavy-handed, and you could have done it a lot better. And unless that kid at the end is going to be a part of the movie, it was all unnecessary.
Exactly. There is one more thing that I wish they would have done, or at least explained. We still don't know who the hell Snoke is.
Oh, I know. I was talking to my buddy this morning, and I was like, because he had just saw it last night with his son, and he was like, one of the things I said was, I was like, I'm bummed because Snoke, we don't know who he is, and he was so powerful, and we don't know anything about him. Like, I would love to see them do another movie that discussed him, or if they do it in the next movie or they better at least somebody better write a book, like a standalone book, like they did for the Emperor. So you could just read about him.
Right, exactly. I really thought that this movie was going to explain his backstory. Was he another Sith? Was he someone close or related to Emperor Palpatine? Was he a reincarnation of either Palpatine or like Sifo-Dyas or someone? You know, it didn't explain any of that. We have no idea where he came from. We have no idea how he came into power. And I certainly hope that at least in the next movie, they kind of explain how the First Order kind of got reborn from the Empire. Everyone wants to know that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, part of me thinks that Snoke is Darth Plagueis, who was Palpatine's master. So that's a possibility. But you don't know. So like there better be like a book, or they better address it in a movie, because they can't just leave it like that. I mean,
they got to explain it somehow. There was a lot of theories about him actually being Darth Vader, but that's not it.
No, and there was he's Mace Windu theory. That was a dumb one. Because this guy was so powerful, and he just came out of nowhere.
And you didn't see him in the flesh until this episode, because remember, in episode 7, you only saw him via hologram, and he was very, very big on the hologram. And in this movie, you see him as he truly is a human-sized person, because you saw him in the flesh.
Yeah. And he's wearing a spiffy outfit.
Until he gets... That was so cool,
a cool way
the way
die.
they did that. I thought that was one thing that I think really stood out in this movie was like the battles and executions, because we've seen lightsaber battles. We've seen a lot of them. We pretty much know what a lightsaber battle entails, but this was so much different, whether it was the way Kylo Ren killed Snoke or the way Kylo Ren tried to defeat Luke. Like, it was different.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I loved this movie. I loved it, and there's some diehard fans that are just like, didn't like it, but it was necessary, because you're transitioning from the characters from the original movie, and you are transitioning to the new characters that are going to be Star Wars going forward, and they did it in a good way.
I agree, and I really think that Luke is still going to be involved as a Force ghost. And I think one of the two main things that would point to that: A, we know what Force ghosts do. We've seen them. We've seen Yoda as a Force ghost. We've seen Obi-Wan as a Force ghost. We've briefly seen Anakin as one, and they've talked about Qui-Gon being one. So there's no reason not to think Luke would be a Force ghost at some point. And number 2, he said, "See you around, kid." I think that points to something.
Yeah. Trying to think here. So, The Force Awakens is about 30 years after Return of the Jedi. So you have to think that there was years of training Kylo Ren, and before that, and you can't have more than 2 Sith. It's always one master, one apprentice. So Snoke has to be somebody else, because there's no way he rose out of the ashes like immediately after the Emperor and Vader were killed. He had to come from somewhere. He had to learn all of the Sith art, and become super powerful without being found out, and then recruit and be able to just manipulate Kylo Ren and train him, and then build this whole First Order. Like, there's no way that happened without him being somebody else. Like, he has to be
either
Darth Plagueis.
something of some strong connection, or somebody dark like that. Or, another theory that I was thinking of, maybe he was just kind of a puppet the whole time. Like there's someone really pulling the strings, and it could be anybody, and he was kind of the figure face, and the real person behind the First Order can't be seen. That's kind of the other theory I have.
I mean, it's possible. But yeah, the new Star Wars is out, and I'm hopefully going to see it again this week because I need to see it again.
Yeah, I'm going to see it again
soon,
probably over the holiday times, over the next 2 weeks, because you notice a lot more when you see a movie a second time, especially when there's a lot to process, because there's a lot to process here.
Yes. So one more thing I have to ask is Princess Leia doesn't die in this movie, but she's dead in real life. How are they going to explain
I was
why
just
she's not in
talking
episode
to my
9?
friend about that, and we were kind of wondering about that because I went into this movie just absolutely expecting that Princess Leia was going to die, just because of the unfortunate circumstances of Carrie Fisher. What I think might happen is in the opening sequence, if there's like a battle scene or something and Princess Leia is involved, they have all the digital recreation and whatnot. I think that they'll show her briefly, and maybe they'll show like her ship being destroyed or something like that. Or, maybe the next movie will open up with like a funeral and explaining how she died in some sort of battle. If they do in fact kill Princess Leia off, it's going to be in an honorable way.
Yeah. I mean, they could have done it in that blast and just been done with it. But you could always do like you did with Tarkin in the last movie, or in Rogue One, and just CGI.
Yeah,
he's been dead.
Even I loved Rogue One, but I have to admit that Tarkin, it was kind of obvious he was CGI, but it was very important that he was in the movie. So I get it; it was important, but you could definitely tell he was CGI.
Yeah. But I think that's going to wrap it up because this has been a long episode. So I just want to say thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. Share with your friends. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go Bears.